topical session. Quick introduction of myself and all the panelists. Of course, myself, I am the, what's that called, CEO of Reactive Labs, and also a committee member for both Access Malaysia and Women in Blockchain Asia. And in front of you, we have a brilliant group of panelists. First, I'd like to introduce Robert Tran, Board of Directors at Animoca and co-founder of multiple companies. You'll probably be talking about that later. Brandon Wong, CEO and co-founder of Avocado Guild, as well as Joe Lee, CEO of DeFiDive. Hi guys, how are you all doing here today?
Good, thank you very much. Thanks for having us, Josh.
Thank you. So I'm going to jump right in because you guys have a lot to share. I'm going to direct some questions straight to a few of you and talking about our topic today, which is really talking about future trends, opportunities, and threats of NFTs and immersive metaverse, a big topic. So let's jump right in. For Robert, first question. What's your opinion about a very Web2 company like Facebook coming into the metaverse space with Meta? I believe you're also working to bridge a lot of Web2 to Web3. What do you think of what they're doing, and how does initiatives like from Animoca may differ from a traditional Web2 company like Facebook?
Yeah, I think right now, there are different types of sort of Web2's company, obviously, right? But in particular, we are very sort of hopeful about the creators economy in particular, and some of the, branding and IPs that's taking the main stage of the Web3 opportunity right here. Which is a little bit different from the platforms like Facebook and other, right? We felt that by bringing on to the Web3 platform, we're able to really empower, the creators economy or these IP owners who are really going to deserve the next, generation of control. In the event that if they already have a substantial community or fan base, that is also a huge contribution to the fan base by having that transparency, by having that empowerment, and also the ability to provide recurring sort of interaction or business from there. So, we're tremendously hype on this particular play, from there on. So, and I kind of said this before, because of the kind of reset of some of the more expensive situation here, it makes, I would say Web2 or even Web1 company have a lower barrier of entry, but they've already have a very sustainable business. So we're not rebuilding the scenario. We're just making sure the value add and the technology are able to couple and magnify the opportunity here. So I think that's sort of a snapshot of how we look at the things right now.
Thank you. So you highlighted a lot about brandings and IPs. Maybe I jump to Joe about this. Obviously you've had a long history in the crypto space, and NFTs introduces a very new kind of like at least an asset class, and IPs have become a huge thing when it comes to NFTs. So, and you have a lot of experience in the art side of things as well, and that relates to IP. What do you think is the future of like intellectual property and NFTs in general, in your point of view, and how is it like moving forward?
So I think, thanks, Josh. I think with the advent of the internet age, we've seen the concept of digital ownership become more and more real. Back in the day, a lot of us will remember, buying a Microsoft Word license and that being a license which cannot be passed on essentially. But I think the exciting thing for me, certainly about Web3, cryptocurrency, and NFTs is an NFT is similar to a digital contract that can be owned. So any digital good which we used to buy and not be able to trade, like license keys, like MP3s, or digital certificate, or the digitization of certificates now that we're seeing for things like house deeds, or even a certificate of authenticity for a luxury good, luxury watch. I know that's close to you, George. Or say a digital certificate to say that you own this piece of art. I think nowadays it's very, very powerful because it gives a lot of power to the artists to sell directly to their fan base and skip kind of trusted intermediaries. So the concept that the digital currency space generally mainstreamed was this concept of trustless transactions. And that's not to say that you don't trust anyone, but it's very empowering to know that if everybody trusts this decentralized network, which everyone pretty much does nowadays, then there is no better way to go direct to consumer from an artist to a fan, a collector, without necessarily needing to pay, say, a 40% cut to an art gallery. or to be able to have to pay license fees to, say, for example, an MP3 provider like Spotify. So I think the whole ownership, the whole concept of having IP locked up within a digital smart contract and NFT that's specifically and provably issued by the artist is very, very powerful. And I'm very excited for the world that's to come if an artist has that much power and control over what they want to create and how it's distributed as well. It's a win-win-win situation all around. It's a win situation from the fan who wants to support the artist. It's a winning situation from the artist who wants to sell directly to the fan. And as long as the gallery adapts, it's for the traditional industry, it can be a win as well if they adapt their business model to be more digital focused first as well. Just as Robert mentioned that Facebook's doing with its advent of Meta.
Thanks, Joe, for that. And following on to that, a question for Brandon. Obviously, when what Joe mentions, a lot of it has to do about the transferability of certain things, and I believe that has a big catalyst to developing what GameFi is right now. I think it's been talked about a lot over the past year. I don't think too many people have a good understanding of GameFi, right? And considering that you have an extensive experience from capital raising, connections in the space, helping businesses in GameFi grow, what do you see are like the future challenges or prospects of GameFi? Is it here to stay, or is it like a fad that some people call it to be?
Thank you for the question, George. I'd like to say it's very important that we kind of understand how early the whole technology really is. The concept of GameFi as we know it right now, yes, it has its flaws, but this is not the final form of the terminology GameFi. To build up on what Joe has mentioned, the NFTs will continue to be more interoperable. They'll continue to develop, evolve with different protocols, with different standards to kind of make our daily lives as we know it a little bit easier as long as it's embraced. There'll be certain regulations that will come in, and most of these regulations in my mind will be beneficial to the whole industry as a whole. Overall, what we need to understand is it will make everything that we do simpler. And at the same time, it will put the rights back in the hands of all the artists that kind of create it. And at the same time, that will also encourage more people to be creative and innovative in building out their own branding, their own protocols, like whatever we recognize as an asset moving into the digital space. The whole GameFi concept, it's not just about play and earn, or win and earn, any of these earning things. It's all just a catalyst for bringing users on board. What we see right now may not necessarily be what we see next year or the year after that. What we really need to understand is this underlying blockchain technology gives use cases for NFTs, gives use cases for tokens. It puts the rights back in the hands of the creators. And in the end of the day, if you're able to view this as a digital asset, you need to understand what an asset is. It's something that you own. It could be a blow dryer, it could be a car. And in the end of the day, you can sell, you can trade, you can lend, you can do what you wish with it. It's yours. But being decentralized means giving you the option to choose what you wish to do with it. And that's the underlying technology. A lot of the GameFi companies we see, Axie Infinity, a lot of the guys that have broke space, Cyborg, they're the first innovators of this whole GameFi technology, utilizing this infrastructure to try and give ownership back to the people that own the NFTs to play their games. They will have its flaws, but as it develops, I think a lot of new innovations will build up on some of the learnings of these past companies that have felt that maybe the tokenomics wasn't built absolutely correctly. But over time, I believe it will evolve. I do believe it's here to stay, just like gaming itself has always been a catalyst for any form of new technology, like forever.
Thanks, Brandon. I think you also touch on a bit about onboarding of new people into the space. That's what GameFi has been doing. So this question is for Robert, right? Obviously, Animoca has been behind many of the biggest metaverse investments in the market. I think almost every major or hyped or metaverse that people are really excited about, Animoca has in some shape or form has been involved. Do you think that the metaverse is a really important catalyst for onboarding new people from Web 2 who have never touched crypto in their life? Or how does Animoca see their role in this whole like onboarding of Web 2 to Web 3?
Yeah, I think the metaverse, it's really a medium where, again, the creators communicate with their community, period, right? And the challenges that sometimes we see, right? Not all creators are, the best presenter, or nor do they 24/7 able to non-sleep and reply people, right? So by having a metaverse, I think there's a lot of technology, whether it's AI, whether it's, certified, so representation, right? Because it's real, it belongs to, these creators' representation that can help. And certainly the community can be a recognized part of the, metaverse to also facilitate the discussion and interaction, and also these are so-called utilities as well. So we think that having this medium that replace the traditional Web2, centralized model where everything has to be owned by someone, paid to use, whereas the true owner doesn't really get that much except being a huge, marketing brand. It kind of changes the scope completely. So we felt that the metaverse is an instrumental ground for bridging the new generation of communication, CRM, loyalty, or even building a sustainable sort of interactivity. So we see that as an important ground. I mean, technology breakthrough every day, whether you want to use Unreal 5, XR, whatever you want to use, it's just a technology, and people like, I'm sure Brendan and Joe would agree. I mean, technology is for us to, use to optimize or magnify the situation. So it's not about the technology. It's about, how do you adapt the business model and use it fully. But we think that the metaverse, because it's decentralized, it's freeware, you can build anything you want. So that gives the power back to the people, right? Or the community, right? I think that's what's the key here that we need to acknowledge. And I don't think there's a better, mousetrap so far at this point.
Thanks, Robert. So jumping back to Joe, I mean, obviously there's a lot of projects that are being built on the metaverse, right? A lot of them are anchoring or centering around it. And there's a lot of talk about how the NFT market is moving to a more utility base. And then obviously there are quick trends like the meme trend right now, which is going on. And but everything is central around community. So a lot of people don't seem to understand why certain projects work and don't work, and how the community involvement and the value of it is building for metaverses and NFT projects. What do you think is that like a secret sauce, or in terms of the community growth and the impact of it? What's your opinion about that?
Yeah, I think this is a really important point to bring up and talk about, actually. So the thing that technologists know of, if they've been involved in kind of the field of computer science for a little while, is the power of network effects. Now, you can't go to Silicon Valley without hearing this. All the tech startups they need to show it. Everyone from Facebook to the latest crypto craze to crypto Twitter knows that whatever you build, whatever technology solution you build, whether it be launching a new NFT project or a metaverse, you need reinforceable network effects. What Facebook has and what it brings to the crypto table are very powerful network effects that have been built up over the period of the last kind of 10 years or so since they existed. And this is no different from what our everyday kind of crypto investor should be looking out for as well. What projects that are being established now, or what metaverses are being launched now that have the strongest network effects, the strongest draws in the community. And this usually comes about from a number of things. Is there some clout factor that has existed for a little while? Are these teams technologically doing something wildly different that the world has never seen before? And now what we tend to call that within the NFT space, certainly in early 2021, when the NFT craze was really picking up a lot of mainstream hype, was, we called these investments blue chip investments. What that meant was they're the first in the world to really do something and do something well. So if we cast our minds all the way back to CryptoPunks and even Bored Apes, they were the first in the world to really popularize the concept of personal profile pictures. The network effects of those going on social media were huge. That was amplified by the fact that the community were crazy and couldn't get more of this kind of stuff. And that it became by virtue of being first to market, first proper solution to launch, first to technologically give special licensing or IP rights, they got the network effects and they became kind of blue chip. What we're looking for this year, certainly at the DeFiDive team, as we look for investments in the space, is, when we're focusing around the topic of metaverses, who were the first to market that really significantly brought technological change that marked a moment in history where everything's going to change. We focus on the early days very much so around Sandbox and Decentraland, the two kind of what we call OG, the original metaverses. But certainly, this is only the beginning of the story. So any community which you see that really rallies around a technological solution that's the first to market, or one of the largest technological breakthroughs in terms of innovation, are certainly the projects that I think everyone should be looking into and everybody should be kind of paying attention to as part of their due diligence process.
Thanks, Joe. Following that, this is for Brandon. Obviously, you are in GameFi and you deal with a lot of guilds, and guilds obviously is managing a lot of people and the network effect that Joe's talking about as well, and capitalizing on that. How do you foresee guilds evolving moving forward? Because they kind of seem like an organic reaction. Like obviously Axie Infinity started out with scholarships, and then guilds started developing, and naturally now guilds and play to earn are a huge aspect of it. But how do you see this moving forward in terms of managing all these people, the expectations, financially, and also just the whole operational aspect of it? What do you think are the challenges moving forward?
I think, well, first off, a guild started by lending out NFTs to our community so that they can use these NFTs for the purpose of yield farming, and that's a form of value extraction. But moving forward, when you actually understand it a bit more and you speak to the members of the guild, you realize that this technology has the power to really change the way that they kind of see how everything works. It's evolved from just being able to provide an opportunity for yield farming to understanding that you're providing a lot of people, at least for us in Southeast Asia, who didn't have such opportunities in the past, to make a living during COVID, where it was really quite difficult. And at the same time, some of those which are unbanked or underbanked have now access to a technology that can make quite a difference for these guys. So moving forward from that, I think guilds itself started off as providing an opportunity with a technology that existed, but we're evolving to a stage where it's really more about educating this community that we've built that is continually growing, because like we've basically invited our guild members to invite their friends and families that can embrace this technology, benefit from the technology. And what we want to do is make sure that they're well educated. And I think that's something that the crypto space lacks a little bit. We want to educate and help onboard the first generation of users that come on board through the concept of play to earn gaming, understanding what NFTs are, understanding what all of these different networks are, what their differences are, and how this technology can really benefit their life. It's not about, like, say, farming 1 or 2 tokens in a game. It's really about understanding what these tokens really are. And once you're in the space, what you can do with these tokens. You can acquire NFTs for themselves to own, or they can trade it for other NFTs. They can invest, they can off-ramp, they can do all sorts of things. And in a way, that's giving them an ability they didn't have previously. So as a guild, we're evolving into a vehicle that helps support all of these new users that are coming into the space, as well as educating them and helping them. Like, it's just so difficult. Like, I remember when I came into the whole Web3, I had to just keep reading, keep learning, keep reading, keep learning. There wasn't like one location you can just get all that information. And as a guild, we have a community that has come together because they enjoy gaming together. And then they've stayed because they've built bonds, not just with each other, but with the founders like myself. We align very clearly with them what we're trying to do. It's not about coming in and just being a mindless farmer within a game. It's about understanding this new technology that can make an impact, not just to you, but your family and friends. And it's about understanding what we're here to try and provide, which is opportunities. So I think future on, guilds will be, I mean, they're gonna be big providers for the space. They're gonna help onboard users into the space. But at the same time, we're also gonna help all the projects in the ecosystem avoid some of the potholes that we kind of see. And at the same time, help them understand what the space is about and how best to navigate it as well for new projects.
Thanks, Brandon. I think you have a core message also in terms of the role of guilds in education. So we have a question from the audience. I would like to direct this question to Robert. I think he's the best person to answer this. The question is, who actually controls metaverses, and if and when AI starts generating more metaverses, who controls this, who regulates this? I think this question comes really from stems from that concern, maybe the lack of understanding about how metaverses is like, and people are kind of concerned about the impact of it. Should it be regulated? What are your thoughts? Because obviously you deal with metaverses that are being built all around the world, working in different jurisdictions. It's probably a huge issue, but people are concerned about areas of control in metaverse spaces.
Yeah, I think our view so far is, metaverse is an open environment, right? So we welcome all the stakeholder or the participant to keep building on top of that, right? It's not a centralized model, is not a one company's job, right? But rather a community's job to build that. It's not only, I mean, when you look at the word metaverse, I mean, there's so many definitions, but you know that there are different, tools, the NFTs, the blockchains, right? The DAO, it's an important, matter on building the metaverses. So you need to really take into account what the whole holistic view of what a metaverse is, or depending on who initiated it, right? If it's coming from a publisher who initiated it versus it's a group of community that initiated it, that will be very different. I mean, to me, metaverse is only a technology. It's a group of technologies that we can assemble together and give you on the front end, very ultra realistic opportunity to experience a immersive opportunity, right? On the back end, it's a set of blockchain, technology that gives you, the transparency and credibility and track record of what actually happened every single second. And then on the ring fence of it, you got a DAO mechanism that really gives every, attribute of the stakeholders what they deserve or what they need to get in order to get a sustainable, metaverse going. And again, because it's not about bringing it today, building it, and you're done. It's like it's really a living society, right? People got to keep building it every day, and it'll be dynamic. And who knows what happened tomorrow? And you guys, like, the OGs, right? Joe, you've talked about the Sandbox and other guys, right? They're the first generation. They have a certain framework. Right, but what does that framework mean in even 6 months? I don't think anyone has an answer, right? So, but all we know is that technology keep improving, and yes, depending on what you do on a metaverse, you are subject to potentially different regulatory checkpoint, right? If you build a casino in a metaverse, I think some folks in some country will come after you. Wait, dude, how do we regulate gambling, right? If you build a concert hall in a metaverse, then probably the tax office will say, "Whoa, you're hosting, so many concerts every day. You're making lots of money here. What about my tax? How am I going to be accountable, to pay?" So I think it's a deep subject, but it's really an open topic as well. What makes this very exciting is that imagination can happen. There's no boundary. You can fuse in physical, property. You can detach it from physical and purely does, digital or virtual. What matter is, what does it take for the community to keep coming back again and again, right? That's an answer for the community and the stakeholder to decide together, in my opinion. That's the definition of a metaverse. I don't know if that helps or get more confused, but.
Does Joe and Brandon have things to add on? Joe, maybe you want to go first?
Yeah, absolutely. So really quickly, I'd like to introduce a brief history of the gaming industry. The term metaverse has been around for a very long time, as Robert alluded to, but what we used to refer to as a metaverse was a digital gaming world. Second Life was one example. People refer to World of Warcraft as a metaverse. The Sims, where you control the little people in the households, that's also considered a digital world. Big example again, Minecraft. $1 billion game acquired by Microsoft, also considered an open world where you can build anything. And let's not forget as well, in more recent history, when these big game studios introduce a loot box system in, where you can pay for loot boxes. It's kind of like a gambling mechanic where you can win special skins, which are hugely personal value to these younger kids these days. Regulators around the world stepped in and said, look, let's try to regulate these at the point of control. And so, of course, it was a game studio's responsibility that if they sold within a certain country, they would have to follow the local gambling regulations if it was classified as that. So regulation, to answer the question to the audience, regulation tends to be geopolitically constrained to a location, but where the technology comes, the regulation will follow. So don't try not to look at it from the other perspective, but do be careful if you're playing in this world, knowing that the regulation needs to always catch up with innovation. That's my top tip.
Thanks, Joe. Brandon, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I'd like to add on to what Robert and Joe said. The term metaverse is very popular these days, but people don't seem to understand that it's been around for a very long time. A metaverse is just a community of people that are able to get together and share their opinions realistically. I mean, you can say Discord is a metaverse. You can say WhatsApp is a metaverse. It's all metaverses. But what makes them different is the senses. In Discord, people will spend money and they'll buy all these emoticon packs that they can use to kind of like express themselves more freely. When you go into a game, World of Warcraft or Second Life, you are able to create an avatar that you can then use to express yourself once again in a different way. And with the advance of blockchain technology, it's really then bringing in a whole new set of ways to express yourself, bringing in digital ownership, your NFTs, having tokens to do all sorts of various things in the metaverse. It's an infrastructure layer that allows for much more than what we're used to understanding. And this is what's really, really exciting. And as Joe mentioned, regulation will always follow, as it's always done through the innovation of any type of technology. We haven't reached the stage where everyone's hoping that we're going to be like, Ready Player One. But the thing is, we're heading in that kind of direction. Once you understand what it means to be interoperable, what it means to have access to your own digital property, what it means to be able to track all your moves within the blockchain. And when it does happen, when regulation catches up, then we'll deal with it at that time, I believe. But people should be aware that whilst regulation hasn't caught up, it's a bit of a wild west out there. It's quite important to understand that with a lot of these new technologies, when you're testing it out, you do your own research in a way. So yeah, but I want to say that this technology, it's really to add more layers of use cases than anything else.
Thanks, Brandon. So we are running close to short of time. So I would like to have last question for all three of you to answer, to give your opinion. Obviously, there's a lot of questions from the public as well about the state of the market moving forward. Obviously, we're in a bear. Most people are curious about what do you expect in the coming year. Do you think that NFTs will still continue to be a catalyst for growth, or do you think that something else is going to kind of like take over? And also the tech, in terms of development, what do you think is coming in the next 12 months? Maybe Robert, you want to go first?
Yes, technology will always advance faster than ever. So, but I think the blockchain technology, it's very solid. There will be new terms. I'm sure everyone could think of new terms. It doesn't matter. I think the key is, we are moving into the next stage of the consumer world, whereas the empowerment, belongs to more and more the stakeholders, the customers, the community. Is not a single, way street, right? It's no longer just belong to the brands or, the centralized concept. We have to remember that technology sort of set this free completely. Welcome to the brave new world. Do whatever you want to do, but do your own research. Like Brendan said, before you step into anything that's, not good for you.
Thanks, Robert. Joe?
Hugely exciting time to be alive right now and to be into tech. So again, to echo the advice 303, do your own research. For us, we're hugely excited about NFTs in 2021. We think 2022, this year, is going to be the year of metaverses. We're looking forward to some of the concepts that are being introduced right now. FitFi, and next year, we're looking forward to what we think will be the year of DeFi. But in terms of gaming, learn about the terminology, economics, tokenomics, and even Ponzinomics, and be careful.
Thanks, Joe. And last but not least, Brandon, some closing remarks. Thank you.
Look, we need to understand what's at play here. It's a technology that allows for more user control and ownership. That's what it really is. Regulators will catch up, and you do have to do your own research. But as with all things, it comes with a lot of opportunities. I believe that the technology is here to stay because it does more good than harm. Realistically, the technology doesn't do harm. It's some bad actors in the space from time to time. As long as we do our own research, we'll be okay with this kind of stuff. Imagine when the internet first came out, how many random sites were offering all sorts of different products. And then what happened? It got regulated and things settled down a little bit more. I just see this whole blockchain as another infrastructure layer that helps that exists to make life easier and to put value back in the hands of the creators and allows you, the users, absolute access to what you want to buy, where you want to go, what you want to do. And while all of that is happening, we live in a digitalized world. People are used to living in a bit of a bubble. And right now, when they come into this space, that they get a lot of volatility, they get a lot of freedom. Sometimes people don't know how to, do the right research to be aware of things. But I feel that this bear that we're in, there's a reason why it's called a bear. Like, it doesn't last forever. Eventually, the bear gets full, goes back into hibernation, and then things move on. In the end of the day, a cycle reset is something quite common, not just in crypto. We need to understand this.
Thank you, Brandon. And once again, thank you very much, panel, for being such an excellent panelist for us. And this is George. It's been an absolute pleasure moderating. And it's from us signing off in Crypto KL. Thank you. Bye, guys.
Thanks so much. Thank you, guys.